Hello and welcome back. This is Kristen from Life of Crafting, and I am here to bring you all the cards that I had done at my Scrap Away Getaway weekend. As I've explained before, it's a weekend that I do with my friend Vicky, and it's called Scrap Away Getaway. And most of the ladies there's like 200 of us, and most of them, almost all of them, are doing scrapbooking. My friend Vicky and I just do cards. And as I've explained in some of the previous videos, I moved into my warehouse studio. And what that means is I took an area that was an office in the warehouse and I've converted it to a studio. And I had the studio set up in my basement before, and this is so nice. I will do a craft room tour before long when I get everything, I just want to situate before I can do that. But I moved all the stuff. I was like, my Lord, Kristen, you have so much stuff. Like, I thought I was like really going through my stuff and just blowing stuff out in the last couple of years. But whew, yeah, there was still those things that we all have. I'm sure you could probably say the same thing that you just hold on to. And it's like, why? So I'm going to kind of go through the evolution of what's happening here. So what happened was there is a paper pack that Stampin' Up! Released called Home for Christmas or Home for the Holidays. I think it was Home for Christmas. That was the paper that started. So I will start with these ones. I had so much of this paper. There is other cards in my prior videos that you can watch that I have made. I have used this card or this particular paper in so many different cards because I bought up every pack I could ever find of this. Between like my Stampin' Up! Demonstrator would do like yard sales at the end of this at the end of every year. Well, she would do them like this time of the year, like in February or March, but it was all the stuff from the year prior that she knew they weren't bringing back. So anyway, I bought all the stuff from her. I bought several packs for myself. So I had a lot, and I'm telling you, a lot, like a good like 1-inch stack of this paper. All different configurations as to like which prints and stuff. Anything I could get my hands on, I didn't care. So I am trying to finally get rid of it. And I want to tell you, I still have a tiny bit left. And I just got done when I did these cards. And I'm like, okay, it's got to get put back up again for a while. I just can't look at it. So anyway, this particular sketch was one I got from justcrafts.com. She has a website where she shares sketches that she does. And when she does them, they typically have like no scraps, which I love. So this particular sketch was using a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and you were going to get 6 cards out of it. So I used this sketch because I had an assortment of papers that were left, and they really didn't go with anything else. So like, for instance, I believe this paper backs up to this stripe, and that paper wasn't really kind of to me going with, let's say, the Santa. So I liked this sketch because what I did was I took the 1 sheet of paper, I cut it, and I was left with this. But what wound up happening is as I was cutting these up, I did not use these 1 by 2 1/4 inch papers because I chose to, instead of having something here, I chose to use up or put these sentiments on. I believe this was left as one whole sketch, which then rolls into what my next ones were. So this was the premise of what I started as far as using for a sketch to get this. And I don't know if I had full sheets. I think these may have been like partial sheets that like I had gotten that other people had like cut. So maybe they were 12 by 12, maybe they were like 12 by 9 or something. So this particular one was that sketch. And this is a Tim Holtz stamp is where the sentiment's coming from. So this was my first thing. And I really made it a point that like I said, I was saving every little scrap of this paper. I made it a point that I just took their small strips and I glued them inside. This sentiment is one that was from like Recollections. So I made it a point to make as many of these cards as I could. I believe I had about 30 to 35 of them in this particular sketch. So I made as many of these as I could using up the bigger sheets of that paper and blew them out. Then what I wound up finding out was when I was moving stuff is I have this Whimsy Stamps Peekaboo Window Die 2. And this is a staple. I love, love, love this. If you don't have one, I would highly recommend it. I would put a link down below how you can get one. This is great for using up scraps, but it was also good because what I had done at one point in my past was I wound up having a lot of mismatched pieces of cardstock that I didn't really know where they were from. And I'm one of the people that thinks, like, as I'm doing things, like, oh yeah, I need that color. Like, I know by the name. So it bothers me to have ones that are just from all over the place. So I took like everything that was like a red, a green, a cream color, whatever, and I cut them all and I used this. So when I moved, I had a ton of these, not a ton, but I probably had 20 or 30 in the red and green of this outline die cut. And I thought to myself, you know what, it's time to use them up. So it evolved into what's known as these cards. Now this card is great because this is, I think, a 1.5 by 1.5 inch square that this cuts out. So I took every piece of paper that I could that had any, you know, substance left to it, and I cut them out to fit in here. And then I mixed and matched up, and I had them all laid out, what I could put with what. I just said that I didn't think that this went with this, but here I put it together. It's funny. So that's how I evolved to this, was let me use up whatever I could for this and get them out of here. And what was also nice is when I was doing this, I went through, and every one of these, if you notice, are something that was a sentiment that I just had sitting in a pile. Like, you know, I probably made a card like 2 years ago, and I always do a couple extra sentiments in case they don't turn out. And I must have had 3 or 4 of these left. And I had like 2 or 3 of these left. And then like, I will save in the back, like here's some white ones. I'll save some at times because these are nice to use for, you know, just on other cards by themselves. That has nothing to do with this sketch. So when this sketch cuts out, it will cut out the squares and that rectangle, and I will save some of them. I try to just do it for enough that can fit in here, because I don't want to keep a ton of stuff. So these particular ones allow me to use up all those extra sentiments I had sitting around. I was able to use up, was able to use up about 10 or 12 of these old frames that were die cut and just sitting there. And then I had these, and I don't even know where or when I had them. It was these holly leaves. I believe this is a Tailored Expression holly leaf, but I had a bunch of these die cut out and were just sitting there. And again, I don't want to just throw them out, but I was able to use them, and they were good because like this sentiment only goes to here, but I could fill in over here and you don't even see that that's too short. So that was what was nice. This particular one I'm not like ecstatic about because this paper's kind of a cream and this is a white. So I felt like that helped kind of hide that they're not the same. So it went from the first sketch into these ones, and I made as many of these as I could. And like I said, I want to say, we'll say like 10. I did these. Well then, again, I didn't always have the color that I wanted cut. I think I had like 3 or 4 of the brighter red that I had to cut. Because if you notice, like, well, they're the same. Some of them were more of a darker burgundy, and they weren't the bright red that I needed for this paper after I figured out the combinations of how I wanted to lay them out. So I did have to die cut like 3 or 4 more of the frames. And then what happened was when I did that, I got left with the red, like I said, squares and the rectangle, which were what this cuts out here. And it's nice because when it cuts, it still puts like a stitching on there. So from there, I took the, like, we'll just say it was like 4. And I had some papers that were left. This is another Queen & Company square that I have. I think it's a 1" by 1". So some of the papers weren't big enough to fit in the 1", 1.5 by 1.5. So I was able to use the 1" one for some of those ones that weren't big enough for this. And it was nice because I could use these squares and rectangles that I was just going to throw away. And I was able to get 4 more cards. And I was able to use some of the ribbon. As I was explaining before, I have a lot. I didn't realize until I moved how much ribbon I have. So I was able to put some ribbon on there. The evergreens were ones that I had already had die cut out. I didn't want to throw them out. So I had thrown them in this, you know, same thing, this little bin of stuff. So I was able to use them up. And I used a Queen & Company die, and I put like a little frame around it because I've had this Doris really thin. I have them over here. They're the strips, so you can make shakers, but I never used them. So it allowed me to use, you know, more than half a sheet up, putting them behind this to create this like frame. And like I said, I got 4 more cards out of basically what was scraps, or things that were already cut that I could just use. So that was the evolution of using up all of my Home for the Holidays or Home for Christmas paper. So I'm hoping you're getting some inspiration out of the cards that I'm making and telling you a little bit about my weekend away and sharing how if you prep and you focus enough, you can blow out a lot of cards. Like I said, I probably got out of the 3 designs, I'd say easily 30 to 40 cards. And this was what I considered to be, just like I said, some miscellaneous papers, scraps, and things that I was just kind of tired of, but got myself some nice cards out of it. So love some thumbs up if you are getting some inspiration. It gives me feedback to let me know that in the future I should continue to keep doing these weekend away wrap-ups. And would really love it if you could subscribe down below. It would really help me build my base and get my word to more crafters that hopefully would be inspired. So I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.